Hey guys, Brad Gilmore here. Want to give a big shout out to our title sponsor, Walker Texas Lawyer. If you or a loved one have been injured in an accident, whether that be a car, truck, motorcycle accident, or some kind of other issue, hit up Walker Texas Lawyer at 713-552-1117 or walkertexaslawyer.com.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Matthew McConaughey.
Brad Gilmore.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
The legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Jessica Alba and Lizzie Mathis. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Kevin Costner joins us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Chris Tucker is in the building. Chris Tucker, good morning to you.
Hey, Brad, and good morning to you. How are you?
George Lopez joins us right now. George, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The legendary frontman of AC/DC, Brian Johnson, joins us right now. Brian, how you doing?
Good morning, Brad. What lovely to talk. You me funny lad.
Megan Trainor.
Thank you so much, Brad. You're awesome.
Chloe Bailey joins us. I appreciate the time.
Appreciate you.
And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat.
Brad Gilmore! And I'm so excited to be talking to him now. This man is the writer. He's the director. He's the guy who brought this story to the big screen. Of course, we're talking about Queen of the Ring, and Ash Avildsen joins us now. Ash, good morning to you. Thank you so much, and congrats on the movie, man.
Good morning. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
You know, so look, I've been a pro wrestling fan my entire life. I've had the privilege of working for the last 12 years alongside the great Booker T for his reality of wrestling promotion. So whenever there's a wrestling movie that comes out, obviously it hits on my radar. And what I love about this movie and a couple others who've come out in the last, 10 or 15 years is there's so much reverence and respect given to the craft of pro wrestling. And I can only assume you have to have been a pro wrestling fan to translate so much love of the business to the screen.
Yeah, I grew up my whole life loving it. It's just been a huge part of my life since I was a little kid. And, this story specifically, I never knew who Mildred Burke was. I didn't know the history of women's wrestling being illegal back in the 30s, 40s, and obviously it went away in the 50s in most of the country. But even until 1965 in California, 1972 in New York, I just couldn't even believe it when I read it. And it's just been a fascinating story that's been forgotten by the majority of society. And none of my friends that are diehard wrestling fans knew who Mildred Burke was either, or any of these other women other than Mae Young. So I just fell in love with the book and just dedicated a lot of my recent years into figuring out how to get the film made.
And what's interesting that you point out, I just feel like, Mildred Burke is a name that you might hear like in wrestling circles, but the wrestling fandom at large, even people watching WWE today, might not be aware. Of course, Mae Young had her great renaissance in the late 90s, so that name's more familiar. Gorgeous George is familiar to people because of his influence on Muhammad Ali and really ushering in maybe the total package of what a pro wrestler could be. But I have a question about setting this in the time that it is, and it being an independent movie, putting it in a period. Obviously whenever something's in a period in production, it adds to a budget. How creative did you have to get with being true to the period, but also trying to make sure that you could stay within the confines of, one, what you needed to tell for the story, and two, the production budget?
Yeah, so Louisville, Kentucky was a big reason we were able to pull it off. There's just so many period-friendly buildings that we found there. The Brown Hotel, the Seelbach, the carnival itself. We had to transport and bring in a bunch of actual real period carnival items and all that stuff was built. But a lot of the actual, interiors and some of the exteriors as well. We were just fortunate that we found them in Louisville, and the city is very tight as far as the square mileage of where all these buildings were. So we didn't have to do a ton of, what they call company moves, where you have to move like the base camp and all of your kind of headquarters of the production with all of the trucks and the trailers and everything. So Kentucky, just in general, was a big reason we were able to pull it off. And then a lot of our crew was just fantastic local people there. The hair and makeup. Our costume designer did come from New York, but a lot of the crew that created that period were from Louisville. And Kentucky's a really great film-friendly state that gives you a major tax rebate, so you get a lot of money back that you spend. It was still wildly expensive for an indie film, don't get me wrong, but Kentucky made what Kentucky was a secret weapon, to answer your question, from between the locations that they have there and then the perks you get to shoot there. And then also OVW was there, which was a huge part of our decision to choose Kentucky for where we shot the film, because we wanted to make sure all of our actors could train and really get, learn the ropes, no pun intended. So Al Snow and Ohio Valley Wrestling was our secret weapon into getting all the actors up to speed on how to wrestle.
Yeah, Louisville's always also been a hotbed for wrestling, as you said, with OVW, and that's going back to years and years and years of training, and of course, during the territory days and everything like that. Mildred Burke, in telling the story of her, so you adapted from a book, and my question is, writers and directors, I'm always fascinated with, because a writer loves everything that's on the page. I mean, that's why you're writing it. They always say that writers make the worst editors, and then directors have to know when to cut things out of the script to help the story move along, or for budgetary reasons, production challenges, what have you. Was it hard were there moments in the script that were in there that you really loved but didn't end up making it into the film?
Oh yeah, there was a lot. I can undoubtedly say I learned so much about about what you just mentioned, as far as a director having to to choose what to keep and what not. And there wasn't really anything that was cut that was specifically with Mildred, but there's just all these other fascinating characters and storylines that were in the book that I wanted to include, and we shot them. And then, sadly, it was going to make too long of a runtime. And, I hope one day I'm a big enough director where people will say, oh, I want to see this guy's 3-hour movie. But right now, I'm not there. And we just had to get rid of so much. And I think one day it'll come out on a director's cut, or on a DVD with all the deleted scenes, because they're really, really great. I love everything we made and we captured, but it was just there was too much on the secondary characters to include in a 2-hour and change movie.
This cast is phenomenal, and you have like a lot of well-known names in there: Martin Cove, Walton Goggins, of course, Emily, who plays Mildred Burke, Josh Lucas, but also a lot of pro wrestlers in the film. And when I've gotten to see and talk to people where there's been the crossover, where wrestlers are in, some other element like a movie set, everyone always says they're the easiest people to work with because they get it. They just understand what the assignment is. Did you find that to be your experience on this movie with the people who were from the wrestling world who are now taking on acting roles?
Yeah, they were all great. And from a stunt level, Tony Storm and Kaylee Latimer, who's Camille Brickhouse, they were our secret weapons in pulling off all of the big, the shoot matches where they have to wrestle, story wise. Shoot match, and this again is another fascinating thing that drew me to the book and Mildred's story, is that they would actually have real matches, as far as there wasn't a scripted outcome, so they were really trying to hurt each other and get the win, but with a live audience. So those those matches in the film, they have a lot of stunts, and Tony and Kaylee did all of their own stunt work, and they did it over and over again, whether it was morning, day, middle of the night, so that we could capture all of the coverage we needed to make those matches come alive. And I don't know that as an indie film with our budget, I don't think we would have ever been able to do it if it was just traditional actors and then switching out stunt people every time there was like a real bump being taken. So they were just so great. And then from the actual acting standpoints of dialogue and emotion, I thought they were both excellent. And I think that they could both have real careers as actors if they choose to pursue, more scripted projects. I mean, they were just, we were really, really lucky to have both of them in the roles that we did.
I remember talking to David Arquette one time, and we were discussing the business of pro wrestling, and we came up with this idea of that pro wrestling seems to be the ultimate entertainment boot camp, right? Because it's a live physical performance. You also have to have some acting chops to it to pull off not only what goes on in the ring, but obviously with the promos. And you have one take, and it's broadcast to television, and you got to be there for the live crowd. There's so many elements that a pro wrestler has to juggle in a given night, and they're doing this 52 weeks a year. It's kind of no surprise that so many of them can translate, like the Batistas or the Cenas or the Rocks, or in this case, Tony Storm or Camille. It's not really surprising to me that they can make that jump. Let me ask you this, though. When it comes to this movie, coming out in the time that it is in, because we're kind of in a wrestling boom, there's this interesting idea that people throw out there online that everything is wrestling. I don't know if you've heard this before, but people say everything is in wrestling. You can see, when you understand the mechanics of the pro wrestling business, you understand everything else about life, whether it be politics, movie making, or what have you, even working in an inner office setting. Where do you sit on everything is wrestling? Do you feel that that's applicable? Do you feel like you can apply the pro wrestling landscape to any other genre or form of entertainment or business for that matter?
I definitely think there is. And it's funny about what you just said about politics. So for international version of the film, and actually for the final version that will be in the U.S., the cut is actually a bit different than the original theatrical release that we did in March. So everyone overseas, and then I believe it will populate. The film comes out this Friday back in select theaters, and also on VOD, on Apple and Amazon, Fandango, and all those places. But there's a cut that's actually 11 minutes shorter, but it has two new scenes, and one of those scenes is with Walton Goggins that I put back in when I restructured the second act, and it's about when they're going to DC to try and get the ban lifted for women's wrestling in some new territories. And Billy Wolf asks Jack Pfeffer, who Walton plays, how are we gonna, go flip the script on the ban? And Jack Pfeffer goes, well, politics and pro wrestling are one and the same, percentages and perception. Let's go play this game in Washington. And then they go. And the truth is, there are so many similarities in the entertainment and business, and also in politics with pro wrestling. Even I remember watching Jesse Ventura tell me how all these guys, all these politicians say all this nasty stuff to each other, and then they're all backstage, drinking wine and eating snacks and just chatting it up like wrestlers in the locker room. And he's like, look, I've done both. You can tell me whatever you want. I've been in the WWE and I've been a governor. I go, this is all the same thing. And I remember that always stuck with me when I saw that interview. But yeah, I do think, I use it all the time. Like, it's all a work. Like, what is it?
It's all a work.
Yeah, everything's either, listen, there's two things, everything in life. It's either a work or a shoot. I mean, that's it,
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Well, look, I love the movie. So this is my final question for you, just a general pro wrestling question, because obviously we all have our favorites. But when people tell me, hey, who's the greatest pro wrestler of all time? Obviously the Rushmore conversation comes up. You could say Hogan, you could say Rock, you could say Austin, you could say this generation, Cena, Roman Reigns, whomever you want to say, Ric Flair. To me, the ultimate pro wrestler, when you think of the pageantry, the look, the promos, the moveset, the catchphrases, the voice, the iconography, is the Macho Man Randy Savage. I think he's the greatest pro wrestler of all time. That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that 100%. He's the best?
Yeah, I think he's the best. 100%. I think he's aged the best. I think he's the most timeless. I think that he also was able, even from a sizing standpoint, which connects with Mildred Burke. You know, he wasn't the biggest guy, but he still went with the heavyweights. But his character, I mean, it's just so memorable. You know, it's so memorable, and it transcends time and place and era. And I think you could have Macho Man show up today, and he would explode. I mean, he could be any decade. You know, there's certain wrestlers that I think are very tied to an era that might not have aged as well in different decades. I just think any you give any decade to Macho Man, and he's completely timeless. And also to connect to Gorgeous George, Pomp and Circumstance. You know, the entrance, and also getting married in the ring with Miss Elizabeth. So he was definitely influenced by Gorgeous George. But Macho Man, to me, he's the most he's the perfect pro wrestler. And WrestleMania 3 with Steamboat. I mean, you could watch that thing like the best classic rock song. Just watch it over and over. Just listen to it over and over. He's just, yeah, I'm a huge Randy Savage fan. And I've actually been trying to find material to craft a screenplay. And, you know, there's not a lot on Randy, sadly. There was no biography or autobiography book written. And you really kind of got to dig deep to find all the true stories. But he's my number one.
Oh, man. Well, you and I share that, and also you and I share love for telling this story, Queen of the Ring, available at select theaters and on VOD this Friday. Ash, I really appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations, and thanks for just telling another great pro wrestling story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Brad. Appreciate it.